And welcome to this FCSI seminar on energy efficiency in commercial kitchens. Before we start, a little bit about FCSI. We're a long-established society of the best management and design consultants, not just here in the UK, but across the world. We are a body of professionals who work with all manner of organizations, be it orchestrating management, consulting support to operate an establishment, and indeed, we are best known internationally for being some of the best designers when it comes to a brand new build or refurbishment. I'm going to hand you straight now to Karen, who's got some great questions for us.
Hi everyone. Well, before I start asking the questions, can I just ask each of you to introduce yourself? So I've just been listening to Julian. So maybe Matthew, could you give a little introduction to who you are and what you do as a consultant?
Thank you, Karen. My name is Matthew Merritt Harrison. I'm the managing partner of Merritt Harrison Catering Consultancy, which we've been delivering impartial quality management advice and design to clients over the last 25 years. I'm also the immediate past chair of the FCSI UK and Ireland, and the CB guide for energy efficiency was initiated under my chairmanship. I'm also a fellow of the Institute of Hospitality.
Thank you. And Ken, can you just a little bit about your background?
Yes, Ken Winch. I am a designer of now some 50 years standing, in business for 60 years, and a member of FCSI for the past 30 years. Past chair of EMI, European Division, past president and fellow of society. My work has been privileged to be involved with historic buildings, new builds, corporate headquarters for market leaders, working with the best chefs and owners of 5-star, Michelin star hotels, restaurants, and that's it.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Ken. Right, Julian, what's your background?
Thank you, Karen. Well, I'm a chef by trade, and I've been, similar to Matthew actually, I've been an independent consulting for 25 years this June, predominantly in management, which involves the setting up of specifications on how to operate any type of business. And I equally do an amount of design and planning work also. I've currently chair of FCSI. I've been a member for almost a dozen years now, and have thoroughly enjoyed that. In terms of the catering background, I've lived and breathed catering since the age of 16 when I first became a chef. There you go.
Fantastic. Right, before we get too deep into the conversation around energy efficiency, Matthew, I think it'd be really helpful just to explain how FCSI consultants support facilities managers.
Yeah, the majority of facilities managers have expertise in disciplines such as engineering or building management, but don't have catering experience or the same level of in-depth expertise as an FCSI catering consultant has. An FCSI consultant provides independent expert advice and an understanding of what is achievable and what constitutes value for money for clients. They also have detailed market knowledge and the advantages and disadvantages of each of the catering contractors and the implications of using in-house solutions.
Okay, brilliant. So FCSI members such as yourselves have been involved in writing a guide all about energy efficiency in kitchens with an organisation called Fcsi, the Chartered Institute of Building Service Engineers. Why, as food service consultants, did you feel it's important to be involved in a guide like this? Perhaps, Julian, you could answer this one.
Well, it kind of started back in 2009 when the FCSI created the Fcsi guide, and so just literally in the last few weeks, the 2021 version has been released. So this was an updated version of the original Fcsi guide. It's extremely important to be involved with a guide like this, and we're in a very unique position at FCSI where we have great collaborative relationships with all manner of organizations, and we do immerse ourselves in the world of manufacturing when it comes to kitchen equipment. And I would say the sort of work we get involved with it covers everything from the floor to the ceiling. So Matthew and Ken are commonly involved with waste systems, where we look at tackling fog issues, fat, salts and greases within commercial premises. We're equally involved, almost 50-50, in terms of how extracted air is taken away from a kitchen and safely deposited into the atmosphere. And at the core of all this, and certainly it's been the theme probably for as long as we've been consulting, is to save energy. So we often find ourselves in a very practical situation whereby we discuss the merits of a gas-fired unit versus electrical, and then any innovations then beyond that, for example, induction cooking. Perhaps historically, gas and solid fuel was king when it came to cost effectiveness of running a kitchen. But these days it's different. And so to put all this together and all this experience that we all have, we've really brought together something quite special from a very practical perspective, but also a financial perspective. To give you an idea there, it's not just creating a kitchen that's robust, strong, you can take a good hammering from a chef. It's about something that costs a certain amount, but that particular piece of kit then needs to last so many years. And this is where the important element, it's a significant aspect of preparing a design and plan, where you may have a kitchen design solid out, it's fit for purpose, and it could be subject to some element of value engineering. Can we swap this particular oven for perhaps a cheaper model, which is quite endemic outside of FCSI? And what you end up with is a kitchen that may need to be entirely replaced within 4 to 7 years. And on the other side of the coin, then it's also about running the cost of that. So it's gas, electric, water, all these things add up, and it's sometimes ignored when it comes to kitchen design and planning. But actually, the cost of energy and utilities over 5, 10, 15, 25-year lifespan is hugely significant. So if you combine that intelligence when selecting the right bit of kit to the beginning, you're going to get much better value for money. So as FCSI consultants, that's often a challenge, presenting a scheme for a kitchen that's £200,000 that could be done for £150,000. And the argument there is, hang on now, this A will last longer, therefore you're not replacing items for many more years. And also your electricity bill, your gas bill, your whole utilities. Think of waste management as well when it comes to wet waste. Can that be processed in a far more dynamic and energy efficient way? So it's the running costs. So therefore, to pull all this intelligence together for the benefit of anybody, basically, who's looking to build something, the kitchen is going to be the most expensive to install and expensive to run part of any building, let's face it. So if you get that right at the beginning, you're onto a winner.
So I really want to pick up on what you just said there about this combined experience. And I've heard people talk of a Ken kitchen and how many years they last. So Ken, I just want to pick your brains a little bit here, that there must be many challenges with designing a kitchen that's not only energy efficient, but it is designed for an old kitchen or an old building, a new building. I mean, there's so many challenges. But what sort of things should people be considering?
Well, first of all, I don't think we should consider them as being difficult one way or the other, because they are both identically or very similar. And essentially, there is no difference actually between one and the other. Any kitchen that you're building could be made to be efficient in energy terms. But basically, the same problems, and I'll just outline a few. One is space. New kitchens, actually, and new spaces are getting smaller and smaller, which is no bad thing because it means that the environment actually uses less energy. But it's also the availability of capital, and finance generally. People, even at the sort of very expensive end, don't necessarily want to spend that much money. So the first thing you need to do is establish exactly what they require from their kitchen. How often do they want to replace it? I'm lucky, you know, I'm a bit of a bully in that sense. I tell people this is what they need to spend, and generally speaking, I've managed to convince them to do it. But the limitations are structure, floor loads, walls to be retained, can't be moved, ceiling heights, services installations, and the availability of the utilities. You know, we talk about the change to be energy efficient, but that probably leads you away from gas and the other fuels that lead towards electricity. And there are substantial costs and time involvements in getting new supplies, new substations, again, either outside the building or if it's within the building. Everything always, in architectural terms, always comes out, take the space out the kitchen, which gives us an even bigger problem. The other problems that I've found, and more so in new buildings than old buildings, I can tell you that it was a lot easier to take up the floor and lay new drainage in Windsor Castle Great Kitchen than it has been to get the drainage away from a particular new build that they've recently completed. It's the position of the stub outlets where engineers and architects put them in a position that means that it affects the design in order to reach those positions. You know, you can't show pipe work. They don't like the visual aspects of that, nor do I. And so you have to put equipment against walls that you would prefer to provide as an island or so forth. Ventilation is also a big problem with the sizes of ductwork and the routes that they take, to the point actually where I've done 3 kitchens recently where there has been no ventilation. So again, that restricts menu, presentation and whatever. Others, BREEAM, this thing which tells me that, you know, it's the energy efficiency of a building generally. I was once told on a project that it would be very much easier and get the BREEAM points if I took 2 cold rooms out and put a bike store in instead. So there's a balance somewhere that's incorrect. Others, well, and this might upset some people, the attitudes and the approach of other design team members. They tend, some of them actually tend not to think of us as being part of the professional team. They don't recognize us as a design discipline in our own right. And we're there to assist and accommodate everything that they want whilst making the kitchen work. And it's very difficult sometimes to change that attitude to the point of actually conflict. And I think this is where Fcsi guides actually, or our one now actually will help that process. You know, most of the times, and particularly on some of the design disciplines, the kitchen is the last part of a major building. And so it's demoted actually in terms of the disciplines that they put to it. I've worked with architects who've never worked in a kitchen before, never designed a kitchen before. I've worked with engineers who, this is the first time they've ever worked on a kitchen and simply don't understand. And they're also sometimes not knowledgeable about the difficulties that we overcome on their behalf. So there's an attitude problem as well. But that goes for old buildings, new buildings. Wherever we're going to be involved, they're going to be there. But it's changing.
Okay.
It's for the better.
Okay, brilliant. So, Matthew, how do you work with clients to go through this process of planning to bring in more energy efficiencies in their business and their kitchen?
It's a bit strange. I was about to say I agree with Ken. Most of what he said, it was very good. I mean, the right way of planning is to start with the catering policy, the product offer, the financial envelope, and the service delivery that the client's looking for. From that, the space allocation can be calculated, and finally the kitchen designed, taking account of sustainability, the circular economy, and energy efficiency. So often we are faced with a situation where a facility manager involves us too late in the process, and the space has already been allocated, or the kitchen design, sometimes by an equipment supplier. This usually results in the wrong amount of space, the wrong equipment, and flows that simply don't work. the facilities then dictate the catering offer, rather than the catering offer being driven by driving the facilities that are required. The FCSI consultant designs energy efficiency into every stage of the process. And you start with what you want to end up with, and then you design from that.
It's good to hear that you're both in agreement on many of the challenges. Another challenge is obviously going to be around the cost. How do you recommend businesses balance the cost of bringing in the energy efficiencies? Julian, you've been quiet for a while.
Yes, yeah, no, this is fantastic. It's a really good question. We've seen some modelling already in the last sort of 5 or 6 years where you are literally presenting kit and then looking at. I mean, it's quite commonplace to when liaising with mechanical and electrical practitioners that they'll want to know the loading for the power for various bits of kit. And if you can then present these in an optimum form, so that then tells the engineering team how much power to bring into site. So there's already a good awareness of kilowatt hours being expended within that type of environment. So then it's we've seen this a lot recently, where we can then present this in more of a spreadsheet approach, saying, well, how much is going to cost you on a per annum basis, and then you can make some subtle changes with. Actually, this is a really good tool to do this, whereby you present an alternative bit of kit, which is potentially. I remember doing this with some induction units a few years back in a very space age type kitchen. It had a NASA connection. I can't reveal anymore. But the induction hobs that we looked at were so expensive, and it was the client's eyes were watering. But that was quite the challenge. But looking at the energy efficiency, this was an education environment, and they'd never come across this type of approach before as a consultant, saying, okay, you're looking at potentially 20% uplift on your outlay here, going for this modern search. It was also a safety feature. That was the big sell, because there's a lot of youngsters using this particular large island of cooking, and the thought of gas flames here was scary. And so eventually we got around this by explaining that but in 17.2 years, it pays for itself. You look at your last year's electricity bill, but it takes a forward-thinking client to jump on board with that. But it's better now, because people are more than aware of their sustainability policies, saving the planet, the carbon neutral approach. There's so much good PR out there promoting that message. It supported our argument.
So that's a good opportunity to kind of bring up the fact that, you've just pointed out lots of people are more aware, but are there any initiatives that will encourage businesses to make more sustainable choices in their kitchen, or anywhere they can get additional financial support from, or is it all down to the responsibility of the business?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I do believe there are some tax reliefs on certain purchasing. Matthew and Ken may know more about this, but certainly when for that sort of question, the answer there is please email louise@fcsi.org, louise@fcsi.org, and ping a note to us, and between us we can come back. There are lots of initiatives actually, and it's all designed to encourage buying that green option. And cashback opportunities, and some of the savvy, brilliant manufacturers out there in the catering industry do sort of publish this as well. Don't forget, doing the green option, you can benefit from some sort of cashback, which is, which actually is really, really clever. Hopefully they'll do that in the, when they start selling electrical cars and things. So the food service industry is way ahead there, and there's lots going on. So yeah, contact Louise. Sorry, Louise, when you get a load of emails. But we're more than happy to put a little pack together and to direct anybody interested in what initiatives there are out there.
Brilliant, thank you. Ken, I'm interested in what are some of the things you would consider when designing a kitchen to be more energy efficient?
Well, I think that I'm going to go back and agree again with Matthew, actually, on what we were saying earlier on. The first thing you need to do is to establish the full design brief. The numbers to be served, the menus to be served, the extent of preparation, bought-in foods, and make that actually a living document, so that if any changes are made during the process, because that actually, as Matthew was saying, it dictates the space, it dictates the energy and whatever. Now, in the existing building, we did one in my old company actually, where we looked at a 5-star hotel. It's better than 5-star, and they had a traditional kitchen, gas, individual refrigeration units all over the place, to support it. This is doing a lot of meals per day, actually, of a very high quality. And we did a study actually of their existing energy costs. We had all the readings actually from them, and we worked out a new kitchen brief. And the brief didn't change, by the way, it was still a 5-star quality hotel. But we then applied all the energy efficiency units, and Fcsi, the new guide actually that we've been involved in, actually outlines so many of those things, so it's all of the above. So very basically, it comes to the use of induction or energy saving equipment. It also actually should involve, in the old days, when you had a fryer, it used to tell you how many pounds of chips you could do in an hour actually through this thing, which was only a 4 kilowatt load. Very quickly, that turned out to be a 15 kilowatt load and then a 30 kilowatt load, because it wasn't the time it took to fry the chips, because that's a time and temperature principle. What it did actually, it says, but what you can do is you can increase the output if you increase the load that much, because your heat recovery is so important. So that heat recovery then leads on to higher loads, but lower usage perhaps of electricity because of their efficiencies. And then we look at centralized refrigeration systems, for example, piping everything back to another hotel that I was involved in. We pumped 15 cold rooms and 35 refrigerated cabinets all back to a single source, which was 3 floors away, operated it off of CO2, but hydrocarbons was an alternative. And on the hot side of that, we put it through a heat exchange system, and we took all of the heat from all of that refrigeration, turned it into hot water, and they only had to supplement the hotel bath actually, or shower requirements in the morning with fresh hot water, if you like, produced by normal calorifiers. So they're the sort of things that we could be doing. Water usage, and recycling and stealing the heat again actually from the wastewater, and also using heat pumps and so forth. All these things actually they've been doing for years, and what we're doing now actually is really, we don't have to invent anything. Because the manufacturers are doing this. It's such an important topic actually. Someone saves a half a kilowatt or saves a gallon of water, or whatever, or it becomes a big sales point. It's an issue. So all we need to do is we keep ourselves up to date with that and incorporate it into our designs. And the other thing that I always think about, and it's one energy which is never spoken about, and this is where good design comes in, the use of spaces. It's people. The energy that they expend actually in a kitchen in a normal day's activity is just enormous. No one ever thinks of the poor devil who's doing 2 shifts, 7 days a week, and he goes home absolutely knackered, because he's been working so hard. And that sort of energy usage actually over a period of time must reduce his own efficiencies and his presentation. And to the point, if it's not a nice kitchen to be in, he's going to leave. And there's the cost of that, which is never taken into account, of recruitment and then new staff, new training, new whatever. And I think it's an important aspect of energy, which is, I just don't think it's considered. It's not overlooked, it's just not considered. So
that's a really good point, because I was going to go on to ask you about future-proofing kitchens, and I think this is the sort of, you're raising it now and have probably been thinking about it for quite some time, but other businesses are not doing it. When it comes to your designs and your designing, how much are you thinking about future-proofing the kitchen and future-proofing it with energy efficiency in mind?
Well, I suppose I could look at it and say, actually, I have lots of kitchens which are 20 and 30 years old, and I don't really get any repeat business, so I must be future-proofing somewhere. I'm certainly not future-proofing future-proofing my income. but no, any good design should take account of future-proofing. But I'll go back to where we started with this whole conversation about efficiency. It's the brief and how that changes. I can't future-proof against a change in a menu, which says the kitchen actually doesn't. I can't future-proof actually the change of a chef 20 times actually in 3 months or whatever, or a chef coming in and saying, I can't work this kitchen, I need a new kitchen, and they then decide whether they want him or not. I have a very simple question to ask actually, and this is not to be offensive, but when you go to an ordinary office and you sit down and you work at your desk, no one says, is this desk okay? Actually, you're supposed to be the professional operator and get on with it. So if you're going into an existing kitchen, chefs ought to be able to produce, unless there is a change in the brief, where the kitchen simply doesn't work for what that brief is, or his philosophies, which the management have employed. So future-proofing, think it through, think 5 years ahead at least actually,
okay.
And then think 10 years ahead if you can. Try and anticipate, allow some extra power actually on the electricity board, give another 6 outlets actually on the electricity board so you can upgrade the equipment without going out in the street and changing the main power source. Do the same thing with water, do the same thing, just you've got to forward think your own design and then impose it, if you like, or influence and convince the client that this is the right way to spend his money now so that he has some insurance for the future.
Okay.
But the layout shouldn't change. It should be professionally done so that anyone can go in there and cook.
Okay, brilliant. Right, I'm really mindful of time. So I'm going to ask you one more question that I would like each of you to answer. If we're thinking about a more sustainable future, which we should all be doing, how would you like to see food service businesses operate over the next 3 to 5 years? And Matthew, is it okay if I put you in the corner first?
That's okay. Now, I'd love to see a greater use of fresh and seasonal British food, less food miles, and I'd always also like to see better standards in respect of cleanliness and working practices. I mean, I've been to kitchens where the staff think it's good, and they may even have a good environmental health officer standard certificate on the wall, but I wouldn't eat there. I also think it's sad to see leading chefs on TV demonstrating poor working practices, drying their hands on the tea towels, or using the wrong coloured knives and boards. That sort of thing needs to end. In respect of sustainability, whilst there will be a place, there still needs to be a place for some single-use disposables. These need to be dramatically reduced. If you're eating in, whatever the concept, crockery and cutlery should be the norm. And to meet the climate change goals, carbon neutral catering will need to become a reality, not just an aspiration.
Thank you. Right, Julian, can I ask you to that one now?
I've got 2 quick ones really. One is that I've just had a business idea, and that is that if you're not recruiting an FCSI designer to help design your kitchen, then you can recruit us to come in and do a sense check on your kitchen. So there's so many initiatives out there for tracking the amount of power being used during an operation. So think of a lot to do with use of sensors. Think of a temperature probe. So think of that evolving now into some sensor in terms of heat, etc. So within your canopy, within your gas, there are certain times in the kitchen day that the power doesn't have to be so high. Having that monitored. So there's a lot of tech we can bring in, but certainly this is an offer today. FCSI do have the capability to come and do an energy efficient check of your current business, and possibly an energy efficient review of a design before it's signed off. But the other thing, the other big point is that this is my day job every day. See this more in the summer terms. A lot of work in education sector, and bottom dollar, you've got the large walk-in fridge, freezer, left on over the summer for 6 to 8 weeks, and with one packet of something without a label, which is bad news. And we think, okay, because the education of operators, and that's such a big issue, that we could all save probably 10-15% of our gas and water and electrical bill if we switch things off. There you go.
Okay, thank you. And Ken, to finish us off, what would you like to see food service businesses doing for a more sustainable future?
You're talking to me?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Sorry, Karen. I go along with everything actually that Matthew and Junie have said actually, but from a pure design point of view, I would like a bit more concentration by manufacturers on its cleanability. I have no idea still why a dishwash machine has to have a 4-inch or 100mm clearance or whatever off of its wall, a surface that you can never get to clean. You know, and I think that if it's not made easy to clean, the general situation is that it won't be cleaned. So what you have to do is to make people be able to reach into corners and under equipment. So I prefer to build my equipment on plinths. I prefer to seal all of the junctions between floors, walls, ceilings, actually whatever with my equipment. And I prefer to see all of that. It costs more, but what you then have is a safer and a much more pleasant environment in which to work. I don't like services being shown in the kitchen. I think again, actually, do a spaghetti junction of pipe work under a worktop, which is on 4 legs and which you can't reach anyway. Actually, I know there are solutions to overcome that, but they all cost money, and I prefer to see the money spent in a much more clinical, more aesthetically pleasing way. Kitchens should be beautiful places to work in. They should not be downgraded, actually. You know, these are highly skilled people under the maximum amount of stress all the time, and every 10 minutes in this type of kitchens that I've been involved in, they have to actually produce perfection. We should make it easy and nicer for them actually to do just that.
Oh, well, that's a lovely way to finish. Julian, I'm going to pass over to you in a second to just close this. Okay. But as you do, I'd appreciate if you could just let people know how to get a copy of the Fcsi guide, and also how do they find out more about the FCSI? Over to you.
Okay, well, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. It's Louise at fcsi.org. Please do get in touch, and we can send you a link on how to get a hold of the Fcsi guide. But also, just as an exercise, please do email Louise. She's our executive producer. Send us some details. We'll send you the links on how to get a hold of the recent Fcsi guide. It's a definite purchase for your organization. If you're looking to build or you run an operation, bear those 2 points in mind. So please do go through Louise. And at the same time, ask her a question about anything myself, Ken, and Matthew have said today. We're here, we are open to work, we are open for business. We've been doing it for many years, and we'd love to hear from you. So equally, if it's just send me the link to Fcsi guide, we'll also perhaps send you the link to our UK website, which has got a lot of information as well. So, and thank you very much today. Brilliant.